Hey guys, welcome back. So, the last video I published was on this generator, and I was troubleshooting a lack of power, and we found out that the windings that provide power to the AVR were bad. So this gen head is basically trash. And usually when that happens, you don't fix it. And I looked up the part, and it was $800. The part that was listed specifically for this generator. But I did do a bit of digging and I found another one, which is here, that sells brand new for about $300. So I looked around and found it actually listed somewhere for $219. So I jumped on that, ordered it. Needless to say, the seller of that canceled the order, stating that they couldn't sell it for that price. Ordered from another place for like $250. They also canceled that order for the same reason. So I ponied up, paid the $300, and it actually arrived. But it was a tough journey because when I came out on my porch this morning, this is what I saw. This box, I didn't open. That's how it arrived. And this was just sitting in the mail bin. You can see it did suffer damage. This end cover is quite badly bent up, and it's supposed to be sitting on that lip, but it's been pushed in. So, I need a new cap already. I'll probably just use the old one, and hopefully everything behind it survived. Other than that, it's just some scratches and scuffs. So it's been a while. I've been trying to get this for almost 2 months, so I'm not too anxious to return it. I'm gonna try to make this thing work. So let me get you set up in a stand and get going on this thing. First things first, I want to pull this cover off and just see how bad or the extent of the damage. That actually looks pretty good. I don't see anything broken under here, so we got lucky. And the old end cover, it's a little rusted, but I'll freshen that up with some paint, and it should fit on, and it does fit on perfectly. So as far as I can tell, that's really the only thing that's damaged beyond repair. So I think we're in good shape. So let me get that bad generator head off and get this one on. So with the bolts removed from the stator, as well as down here, theoretically this should slide out. Just want to give you a better look at the carnage here. The windings mostly look good, but if you keep going around, you'll see right there where it burned through, and it's similar on the other side. So the main power windings are all good, but the two here and the two right there are the ones that provide power to the AVR. You can see those are the ones that burned up, unfortunately. So before popping this rotor off, I do need to fill a cylinder with rope. And I've already rotated the piston so it's at the bottom. And I'm just gonna feed this rope in until it's full. And that should basically lock up the engine so that I can torque down, and get the rotor out. And on my last video, I showed you how to measure a rod to put in there. So I think I still have that. I'm just gonna pop it back in and use that to push the rotor off. Wow, that was uneventful. Before I can install this, I need to get all the hardware off so I can separate that rotor and stator. So the new bell housing, from what I can tell, it's the same design, same size. So I'd rather not pull the bolts and put the new one on if I don't have to. So I'm going to leave this one alone and try putting it together with the old bell housing. So I'm having trouble getting the stator to slide on, and I think it's hanging up right here. There's like a little spring here on the outer race here on the ball bearing, and I think that's supposed to help it stay still so it doesn't spin. Anyway, it's not sitting quite right. I don't know if that was part of the damage that it suffered or if I'm just being too wimpy trying to push the stator in, but I'm going to swap it out just with the one from the old rotor and see if it goes on any better. Okay, that's much better. I'm going to put the bolts on and just loosely tighten them, maybe to 20 inch-pounds. And then what I want to do, I guess I want to pull the rope out, spin the engine, make sure the rotor isn't scraping against the stator. Because if it is, this power head won't last long. And you know, when you line everything up, It doesn't take much. There's a very small air gap between the stator and rotor, and if you get it wrong, you're going to destroy the gen head pretty quick. Okay, good. I don't hear any rubbing or scraping, so that means the stator is positioned well and not hitting the rotor. So I'm going to finish torquing these down. I usually torque them to about 80 inch-pounds. Again, I don't know what the specs say on this, but given the size bolt and that it's going into aluminum, I don't dare go much more than that. So while I'm here, I'm just going to get the exhaust off. I want to get that painted up, as well as the old end cover. And one thing I noticed, I'm going to have to look at a parts diagram here, but usually, I mean, there is a heat shield here that I took out for the fuel tank because it's a plastic tank. It needs to stay cool with that exhaust here, but there's usually something that goes behind the exhaust to kind of shield some of the heat away from the stator so that it doesn't melt down, wear out the insulation from overheating. And I don't see that. On the newer model Huskies, they had something that bolted on down here and then bolted on here. So I could buy one of those. I just don't know if there's enough clearance for the tank or even if it's recommended for this generator. So do a little bit of research on that and come back to that later when I put this back together. Getting ready to reconnect the stator wires, and I'm noticing one thing here. There's 4 wires coming out of here, which is good. Sometimes they have 3. The old one also has 4 wires coming out, but you can see the colors are different. We got blue, red, white, and black. And if you look here, you just have white, black, black, white, and actually the wires coming down from the outlets, it's the same. It's just 2 black wires and 2 white wires. So I'm assuming that the whites are neutral, and I've already tested that with the wires going to the outlets. They are in fact neutral, but they're connected together. So if I were to put these in the wrong spot, I'd essentially be jumpering between the posts. And if they're not both neutral, then you're essentially going to end up with a lot of power going through this neutral. It's going to cause some sort of a meltdown. So I'm going to hook this up, maybe just one of the whites for now, start it up and do some tests down here. I want to test between the black wires, which should be 240 volts. And then of course between the black and the white should be 120 on both. And then I've never done this before, but I assume if I test the voltage between the whites, it should be 0. So I just want to make sure that it is. And then I will connect the second white wire going to the outlets, and then we should be good. All right, so before connecting all these wires, I wanted to show you guys what readings a healthy new stator and rotor should have. So, and this is also for my own benefit, I want to make sure that this is one winding and this is the other. So I want to connect the lead here, one to each wire, and make sure I get a reading. And yeah, that's good. So it should be between 0.2 and 0.5. So that's a good reading. And then down here in this other winding, we get the same. So that's as healthy as you can get. It's only downhill from there. Now, as far as the other wires going, the blue wires, which supply the power to the AVR, were bad in the other one. I think it tested at a 0.6. And this one theoretically should be healthy because it's new. Get about 2 ohms. So that, I guess, is a normal reading for this generator head. And now the white and green, which is what supplies voltage to the AVR, not voltage to power it up, but it's used to measure the voltage that's being created, and then it adjusts the AVR accordingly. And similar to the stator, maybe a little lower, 0.2. And then finally the rotor. The old rotor that was in here was around 70 ohms, which was right, very borderline reading. And this one's much better. It's around 53 ohms. So those are the readings that you should get on a perfectly healthy, hopefully, stator and rotor setup. Now, there is one other difference here. In the original stator, the wires were a white wire, a black wire, and then a red and a blue. In this case, the colors are a little different. So, I'm assuming the whites are the neutral and the blacks are the hot wires. So with that said, I do have wires coming down from the outlets and they actually match. And I've already tested them, and the white definitely goes to the neutral side of the outlet. But the thing to note is that the white wires are connected up in the electrical box. So if I test each of these white wires, we're actually going to read continuity. So these are a little bit dangerous because if you put them in the wrong spot, you're actually completing a circuit and you're going to short stuff out. So when I reconnect this, I'm going to hook up the black wires to the black and one of the white wires to one of the whites. And I'm going to start it up, test it. One of the outlets should work. And I'm going to test the voltage between the black wires. If those are the huts, it should be 240 volts. And the voltage between the whites, I would expect to be 0, although I've never tested that before. So I do want to see what those readings are before I just connect all the outlet wires. I don't want something bad to happen. To hook up the AVR, the red wire goes on the left brush and the black on the right. And then this plugs in only one way because it's keyed. Okay, so we're almost ready for contact. Just gonna throw the spark plug back in, get the exhaust on, and I'm gonna leave this cover off for now because I wanna test the voltages coming out. This wire I'm gonna purposely leave off for now, as I mentioned earlier. I'm just gonna wrap it up in tape so nothing bad happens. But this is more or less it. I mean, your generator might be a little different. Sometimes there's 3 wires coming out, not 4. And sometimes the white is bonded to ground. So you got to take note of those differences. And in my case too, it doesn't bond to the ground, which is somewhat rare. Most of the ones I work on, they do bond to ground. Also, since these wire colors are different, you got to take caution when hooking everything back up, especially wires that are common together, like these 2 whites, which is why I'm leaving this off, and I'll just tape it up until I test where the power is, and then I'll make the final connection. Gonna start this up real quick, check the voltage on each winding, as well as the voltage between the blacks, which should be 240, and the whites, which should be close to 0. I hope. So the good news is the Stator works fine. I get 120 volts on this set of windings and 120 on that. But I'm not getting what I expected between the black wires. I'm only getting 120 volts, I believe. And when I test from different windings, white to black, 120 volts, white to black, 120 volts. So I'm gonna have to read up on this a bit. I'm still a little hesitant to connect this white to white, because then essentially I'm going to be bridging these 2 stator wires. And if I do it wrong, we're going to have a problem. All right. I didn't really get what I was expecting to get when measuring, but when thinking about it, I guess it makes sense now, because these 2 coils are isolated. There's no connection between them. And if you think about it, if you have, say, 2 batteries, right? You connect the positive on one battery to the negative on the other, and then you get 3 volts on either end. And without that connection, you're not going to get 3 volts. End of story. So I went ahead and connected the white wires just through a fuse in case something goes horribly wrong, but I don't think it will. Really, the only thing you could do that'll really mess things up is to connect one coil, the black wire, to the white, which would be a dead short. Going between coils, it's either going to be in series or parallel, and neither one should result in a meltdown, but I guess we'll find out. Okay, good. That was much better. So creating that connection between the two coils in series, we now get a 240 volts here on the black wires and 0 between the white, which is perfect. And of course we get 120, 120. So that's what I was expecting to see. I'm just gonna get this back to the garage. We'll hook this up permanently, get the cover on, get the tank on, and bring it back out for a load test. So I took another look at the parts diagram, and there is no heat shield here between the stator and the muffler. So that could explain a few things, because I've picked up 3 of these generators, and 2 of the 3 had bad stators. So, you know, this Subaru setup is exactly the same as the HU 5000, which I have one over here. And this one, you can see the heat shield here. It bolts on the back and on the top of the engine right there. So, you know, I've been measuring, and I think this heat shield for the HU 5000 will fit just fine on this other generator. So, you know, this is a later revision of this, and I have a feeling they realized they made a mistake here. So I'm gonna get that part ordered and throw that on. So the heat shield arrived today. I'm gonna try to install it and see if it's compatible with this generator. Okay, so it bolted on fine. It was a bit tight, but it all worked out. You know, the only reservation I have about it is the fact that this heat shield is touching the muffler kind of on this side, but it has a small air gap over on this side. So ideally there'd be an air gap the whole way, but it is what it is. Better than nothing. Okay, I'm gonna perform hopefully the final test here. After I start it, I'm gonna check the voltage between the 2 huts on each leg. Should be 240. And of course I'll check each leg, make sure it's 120. Assuming it all tests good, I'm just gonna put a 3000 watt load on and make sure that the engine can keep up. adjusted the speed up a little under no load. Okay, good. The engine sounds good and the power output is also good. It was running a bit slow, so I did turn up the governor screw just a little bit. And once I made that adjustment, it was at about 61.5 hertz under no load. And under a 3,000 watt load, it was holding at a little above 59 hertz. So that's good. And this generator is pretty much all set now. We took a machine that was not making any power, put a new head on it, and it's working quite well. Also, this heat shield is doing a good job. The stator is nice and cool, and of course the heat shield, I can't even touch it, it's so hot. So I'm glad I added that, and hopefully this stator will last a bit longer than the last one. Anyway, I hope this video helps someone. Thanks for watching.